ready?
I think we're ready to go. Okay. Everybody's been here.
Go ahead. We're ready to go, right?
You ready to go?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Everything good? The committee will please come to order. A quorum is present. Without objection, the chair is authorized, you're good. The chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. Pursuant to Committee Rule 5B and House Rule 11, Clause 2, the chair may postpone further proceedings today on the question of approving any measure or matter or adopting an amendment on which a recorded vote or the yeas and nays are ordered. Now, pursuant to notice, I call up a report containing a resolution recommending that the House of Representatives find Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with a subpoena duly issued by this committee. The clerk will report, which has been distributed in advance.
A report containing a House resolution recommending that the House of Representatives find Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with a subpoena duly issued by this committee.
I ask unanimous consent that the report be considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Without objection, so ordered, the chair recognizes himself to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute. The clerk will please report the amendment.
An amendment in the nature of a substitute offered to the contempt report as offered by Mr. Comer of Kentucky.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read and the substitute will be considered as original text for the purposes of further amendment. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for a statement on the report.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Chair recognizes Mr. Donald.
Mr. Chairman, for the purposes of this hearing, I move that debate be structured to 1 hour on the ANS, 30 minutes each side, and 10 minutes on every debate that might be entered during this hearing of the Oversight Committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Objection.
I object to that.
All right, there's an objection, so we'll vote.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we heard on the motion?
Yeah, there's a motion. And all right, we'll suspend.
Mr. Chairman, my objection consists of this. He cannot move to override the rules of the House of Representatives. And we know exactly how debate is to occur, which is the way we usually proceed in debate. So I don't think we have the power to do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this committee has already done that earlier in this very Congress. We went into structured debate on a couple of items a few months ago.
Yes, by unanimous consent only. So I've objected to it. I mean, if the gentleman wants to take it to a vote, we can take it to a vote.
Gentlemen, you?
By all means. Well, why do we want to limit debate on this anyway?
Yeah. If I may, I rise in support.
Okay, we're going to suspend and call the parliamentarian to get the official ruling, correct?
Okay.
So it may take I'm estimating 5 minutes.
Fine, Mr. Chairman. In the meantime, I have a parliamentary inquiry of my own. Can you?
Well, I think we were suspended.
Oh, I just thought in order to save time, if you had other parliamentary inquiries, you could take them. No?
Yeah.
No?
No, let's get the ruling from the parliamentarian, then we'll proceed.
Why didn't you guys negotiate with us? Why spring it on us?
All right. All right, the committee will come back to order. The motion is out of order. I'll now recognize myself for 5-minute opening statement.
But, Mr. Chairman, can I just pursue my parliamentary inquiry? Will you just explain why this markup was delayed to 8 p.m., throwing everybody's schedule into chaos today and the building's closed to the public? Why was that done?
Okay, that's not an appropriate inquiry.
The time of the meeting is not an appropriate procedural
No,
inquiry?
your inquiry is not an appropriate parliamentary inquiry. So let's get back to order. Recognize myself for opening statement. Today's markup initiates contempt of Congress proceedings against U.S. Attorney Merrick Garland for defying a subpoena from the Oversight Committee. The committee's February subpoena required the Department of Justice to produce audio recordings of President Biden's interview with the special counsel investigating his mishandling and improper disclosure of classified materials. The department has chosen not to produce them. That's why we're here today. This is not a complicated subject. The Oversight Committee requires these audio recordings, and the Department of Justice has refused to provide them. We're not in court. The accommodations process has been exhausted. We are not making a request. The subpoena requires production. We are not requiring anything that interferes with an ongoing investigation. The special counsel already concluded his investigation by choosing not to charge President Biden because he is an, quote, elderly man with a poor memory, end quote. This morning, the Department of Justice informed the committee that the president has asserted executive privilege over the audio recordings of the president's interview with special counsel Hur. President Biden's decision to withhold the audio recording from Congress is alarming. The committee has already obtained the transcript of the interview. President Biden must have something to hide because it does not make sense that he would suppress the audio if the transcript was accurate. There is no substitute, as the many lawyers on this committee will tell you, for a recording of an actual conversation. Not a summary, not a report, not a transcript. The White House has shown it is willing to alter transcripts to protect Joe Biden's image. We will not simply take the Justice Department's word about this interview. It is not the Department of Justice's decision how to cooperate with a subpoena, just like the people who receive subpoenas from DOJ do not get to negotiate their compliance. The Department of Justice is not above Congress. It is not above the law. It is also not President Biden's decision to assert executive privilege on audio recordings when the transcript has already been released. In 1974, the House rejected an attempt by President Nixon to release a transcript instead of subpoenaed audio recordings. And there should be bipartisan support to reject it here too. Not long ago, a very distinguished member of this committee said, and I quote, "The lesson is, please tell your children out there in America, if you get a subpoena to go before Congress, if you get a subpoena to go to the court, go. You have a legal responsibility to go," end quote. That distinguished member was none other than Ranking Member Jamie Raskin in 2022, only 2 years ago. Now Ranking Member Raskin has spent this Congress making excuses for why people like Hunter Biden or now the Department of Justice don't have to comply with congressional subpoenas. On January 10th, 2023, this committee announced an investigation into President Biden's mishandling of classified documents. 2 days later, on January 12th, 2023, the Attorney General announced his intent to appoint a special counsel to oversee the criminal investigation of President Biden. While the special counsel pursued his investigation, the committee did its own work and found facts that have challenged the White House's official narrative about these classified materials. Months of thorough investigating by this committee have revealed attempts by the White House to keep the truth from the American people, not just about the documents themselves and why Joe Biden had them, but President Biden's memory and mental capacity to do his job. The committee's timeline begins well before the White House's narrative that President Biden's private lawyers just stumbled upon classified materials in November 2022 at the Penn Biden Center. May 24th, 2022, 6 months before the White House's story began, the White House counsel, Dana Remus, contacted a Biden former employee to retrieve President Biden's materials from the Penn Biden Center and then traveled there herself to pick up boxes. Why would the most senior lawyer at the White House be going to pack up an office that was supposed to have just have pictures and personal documents in it? Why were President Biden's personal lawyers visiting the Penn Biden Center days before the discovery of classified materials if they thought they were just picking up pictures and letters? Why were they calling FedEx to pick up boxes and a White House employee was leaving with boxes before the November 2nd discovery? Now the White House won't permit this committee to depose Dana Remus. The White House won't allow any of the employees that entered the Penn Biden Center before November 2022 to speak with the committee. What is the White House afraid of? Why not be transparent and open with this committee and the American people? For that matter, what are Democrats on this committee who oppose the release of these audio recordings afraid of? The recordings will just be President Biden speaking. What is it that would make them nervous about that? It's because they know, once again, President Biden has not been honest. He hasn't been honest about his family's foreign entanglements. He hasn't been honest about mishandling classified documents. And if the Democrats were honest, they'd admit President Biden's mental capacity is declining. Americans see it happening every day. In fact, 6 in 10 Americans don't have confidence in Joe Biden's mental capacity. If the Attorney General wants to defy Congress and not produce the audio recordings, he will face consequences for those actions. The path before us is clear. I urge this committee to move forward with holding Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt. I now recognize the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, in this special nighttime episode, we resume the madcap comedy mystery series called Comer's High Crimes and Misadventures, the hilarious quest to impeach a president who has done nothing wrong, an avowedly low-budget but multi-million-dollar taxpayer-funded production which most Americans assumed had ended 2 months ago and had completely forgotten about. But tonight, with the cast and crew now fresh back from a surprise
You mean
trip
like
to
the
New York
January
City,
6th committee?
Stop it.
I'd like my time restored to me, Mr. Chairman.
Order, order. Chair recognizes ranking member.
Okay.
Order, order, order.
Well, tonight with the cast and crew fresh back from their surprise trip to New York City, it's clear the show must go on. Now, our originally scheduled performance was supposed to be at 11 a.m. today, but it was postponed when members of the majority chose to join a mass spiritual pilgrimage to the New York criminal trial of a Florida man, an adjudicated fraudster and rapist, as he faces 34 felony counts of falsifying corporate financial records to cover up $130,000 paid in hush money to a porn star sex partner. Now, although some people are churlishly complaining that members should actually be here to vote on public business and should not have forced a last-minute change in the committee schedule, our colleagues properly demonstrated for all of history their fierce devotion to this clearly reformed, devout, and pious Florida spiritual leader who many supporters are now calling the Messiah from Mar-a-Lago. Of course, in the meantime, Chairman Jordan in the House Judiciary
Will
Committee...
the gentleman yield?
Preempted. No, I'm in the middle
Sir,
of my
I
introduction.
appreciate that photo. It's a good photo.
I would like a copy of that. Done with it.
Would you like a signed one, Raskin?
Yes,
Could
I
you
wanna-
get your members in order, Mr. Chairman?
It's a great photo. I want a copy of it.
Order.
Mr. Chairman.
In the meantime, Chairman Jordan in the House Judiciary Committee preempted our GOP colleagues on oversight, rendering this entire exercise not only absurd, but completely meaningless and redundant. They have already held Attorney General Garland purportedly in contempt. Now, when we last met on this matter, you will recall that the majority still had not identified a single high crime or misdemeanor that the president had committed. The committee's impressive 3.8 million pages of documents and 80 hours of testimony from 20 witnesses produced nothing but overwhelming and definitive proof that President Biden had done nothing wrong. So desperate for a new storyline, Republicans have come up with this astonishing new plot twist. They now propose to hold the Attorney General of the United States in contempt for giving the committee the information it asked for. And it is information that has absolutely nothing to do with their failed impeachment investigation or any high crimes or misdemeanors. Now, true fans of the show will recall from prior episodes this plot device of punishing people for complying with committee orders. But this new episode of not taking yes for an answer sends us off into strange new worlds of absurdity where no congressional committee has truly ever gone before. The majority wanted to know what President Biden said in his voluntary interview with Special Counsel Hur. And maybe there was an impeachable diamond lurking in the rough. So the Justice Department complied with the request. It turned over the 250-page transcript of President Biden's 5-hour interview with the special counsel. We had a hearing on it in this committee. The special counsel came, and there was nothing impeachable there. If there had been, you would have taken up Mr. Moskowitz's offer, and you would have voted on impeachment after it happened. But you did it. Committee members and millions of Americans got to read the entire transcript and can read it right now if they like. We all can learn what the president was asked and see how he answered each and every question. But the chairman insists that's not enough. He and the rest of America are clearly able to read the interview, but he wants to be able to hear the interview. The book is not sufficient. He wants the audio book. And because of this gratuitous and comical request, the whole troop now seeks to hold the Attorney General of the United States of America in contempt. Anyone watching can grasp the fallacy cleverly tucked into this new special primetime episode. There is nothing relevant or material that our committee can learn from an audio tape, which we cannot learn from the 250 pages of the transcript. The format of the medium does not change the content of the communications. So, in this absurd twist, our friends now seek to blame the spectacular belly flop of their own impeachment probe on Attorney General Garland and his sneaky effort to obstruct the investigation by cooperating with it. We know what real obstruction looks like because the last president specialized in it. This president agreed to sit down for a voluntary 5-hour interview with the special counsel investigating him. Attorney General Garland turned over the complete 250-page transcript interview. That's not obstruction. Real obstruction was Trump and his administration refusing to provide information Congress requested in more than 100 different congressional investigations and inquiries. And I know that pleases the gentlelady from Georgia because he issued...
I just want to hear Joe Biden. Why can't the American people hear him?
Order, Mr. Chairman. Get her under control.
President Trump issued an edict. No, I am glad that the gentlelady from Georgia is learning something tonight, okay? The president, I encourage her to be a good listener, and she's been a good listener. So, Mr. Chairman, the last president issued an edict directing all federal officials in his administration to categorically ignore and reject all congressional subpoenas. Do my colleagues remember that? Do they know that? He told them not to cooperate with any federal investigation at all by Congress. And we didn't hear a peep from any of them. That was real obstruction. Real obstruction happened when 2 members of this committee, who may be preparing to vote tonight to hold Attorney General Garland in contempt, brazenly refused to comply with subpoenas from the U.S. House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol and still have not responded to those subpoenas. But now it seems, Mr. Chairman, I just got past something that the whole obstruction gimmick may just be a fundraising ploy, which demeans the overwhelming legal integrity and impressive theatrical ambitions of this enterprise. I was just handed a mass fundraising email solicitation for your campaign that you sent out this evening, Mr. Chairman, stating that, quote, Biden and his advisors are terrified that I will release the recordings, forcing the media and Democrats to answer for the dismal decline of Biden's mental state. This could be the final blow to Biden with swing voters across the country. The Democrats are pulling out all the stops to stop the bleeding. Signed, James Comer, Chairman, House Oversight Committee. Now, I must confess my disappointment to be handed this fundraising solicitation, signed by you as Chairman of the House Oversight Committee. I thought that you were serious about the legal enterprise here and not just another political huckster calling hearings to score cheap political points and to make a buck. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the full and complete 250-page transcript of the President's interview with Special Counsel Hur, which we have now had in our committee for more than 2 months.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I know that some people may think this is a big Broadway production now with everybody's trip to the Big Apple, but it is high time to close this unhinged series and get back to some semblance of the people's work. We have the interview transcript. We have the President's words. There's no basis for this outlandish contempt proceeding, which only further disgraces our committee along with judiciary. Accordingly, Mr. Chairman, and since your members seem to be in such a hurry to be done with this, I move to immediately adjourn these proceedings.
Seconded.
So in your opening statement, you moved to adjourn.
I'm moving to adjourn these proceedings.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
The noes have it. Motion fails. Now, do any other members wish to be heard?
Recorded vote.
A recorded vote has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
We got our things. Why we not doing
A procedural vote, we have to vote the old-fashioned way.
Mr. Jordan. Mr. Turner. Mr. Gosar. Mr. Gosar votes no. Ms. Fox. Ms. Fox votes no. Mr. Grothman. Mr. Grothman votes no. Mr. Cloud. Mr. Cloud votes no. Mr. Palmer. Mr. Palmer votes no. Mr. Higgins. Mr. Higgins votes no. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Sessions votes no. Mr. Biggs. Mr. Biggs votes no. Ms. Mace. Ms. Mace votes no. Mr. LaTurner. Mr. LaTurner votes no. Mr. Fallon. Mr. Fallon votes no. Mr. Donalds. Mr. Donalds votes no. Mr. Perry. Mr. Perry votes no. Mr. Timmons. Mr. Timmons votes no. Mr. Burchett.
No.
Mr. Burchett votes no. Ms. Green.
No.
Ms. Green votes no. Ms. McLean. Ms. Boebert.
No.
Ms. Boebert votes no. Mr. Fry. Mr. Fry votes no. Ms. Luna. Ms. Luna